Welcome to the Sound Mind podcast, where I invite interesting guests from the music field and discuss with them topics such as musical and personal growth, pursuing excellence and self talk, body and mind maintenance, practice and work routines, music business, and more. I'm your host, Michael Krustel, and welcome to the Sound Mind podcast. On today's episode, my guest is Shai Maestro, an incredible musician, piano player, composer, touring all over the world with his projects. Alongside that, he's also such an inspiring and wise soul. I have to share a story with you, which is that 10 years ago, I attended his concert for the very first time, and up until this day, that concert remains the deepest experience that I've ever felt during attending a live performance. We're going to discuss topics such as meditation. We're going to discuss musicianship and what is that all about. And he even shared a very interesting term that I've heard for the very first time, which is creative pregnancy. So I hope that you enjoy and have fun. Welcome, Shai. Welcome to the Sound Mind podcast. I am extremely honored and happy that you responded to the request. So welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I also heard that you became now European and that you're living in Spain. So welcome to Europe as well.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, before I start with throwing questions at you, I have to say that it was, I think I was at somewhere at the beginning of my musical career when I found out about you, and you were a part of Avishai Cohen's trio, and it was a recording of Nunu. And then that was like just wow. I remember me and my friend, he played double bass then in my trio, and he was like, man, you have to see this video. Look at this piano player. And it was like, whoo, crazy. And we enjoyed it so much. And then several times I checked it out after that. And as time went by, then I started studying in Rotterdam. And there, another friend of mine invited me where you were playing with your own trio then. And I have to say that that was the deepest experience that I got in a concert. I never felt anything like that before, neither after. You were playing with Gilles Ravitz on the drums and Jorge on the bass. And I was just so immersed in the gig like that you were giving that I could only like move back and forth and that was it. I was just like, oh my god, what am I? You know, it's like that when you're binge watching a series and you're asking yourself, what am I going to do after the concert or after I see all the series? You know, how is life going to look after that? You know, and yeah, I have to say that I mean that was the first experience that I got from your show. And then of course the next I went to your gigs also then a couple of times more. And yeah, the first one struck me the most because I was just thrown in. You know, you see YouTube videos and whatnot, whatever. But live, man, you really made that night, and you put a completely different threshold on how the connection with the people is just through music. Also, because I noticed that you don't really talk that much, but it's just everything goes through music, and it was just such a beautiful lesson and message and experience. So I never told you that. So thank you for that as well.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm very happy to hear it.
Yeah, and I've read that you started playing the piano at quite a young age. What was that thing that made you decide for the piano?
Made me decide to play piano at the end?
Yeah.
Well, I think the only time where I actually had the question whether I want to do it or not, if that's what you're relating to,
Yeah.
was I was 16, I think, 15, 16, something like that. And I went to Berkeley's 5-week program, and I met there like a bunch of people that were super serious about the craft. John Baptiste was there with me. We were and like a bunch of other people, and you saw like how serious they were. And then I was like, okay, fuck, I understand now how much time you need to dedicate to music if you really want to do it all the way. And I was like, I don't know if I got that in me. And then I just kept on playing while I was asking myself these questions, and then I just got immersed in the music. And the question, I didn't even need to answer it. It was just like, wow, I just love music so too much to stop it, So let's go, give it as much as I can.
So it happened very, very naturally, I guess, right? Like you just let go with the flow and see what happened.
To do it, you need to sacrifice, like especially at a young age. If you start, and you see it a lot in the classical world where some kids are playing from like 5 years old, like with a crazy practice routine and almost like athletic schedules.
Yeah.
And then the sacrifices for kids, for teenagers is big. You don't, like, everybody goes outside to play basketball and you're playing piano. Everybody's like going to the party and you're like, well, and so the question was always there, like, wow, it's pretty intense. But then, I would listen to Chick Corea playing or something, and I was like, fuck, that's what I want to do. So, okay. So I guess it's not a choice. I mean, it is a choice, but it was like, it just happened by itself. So.
Yeah. So as a kid, you were never like, okay, were you as a kid also asking yourself these questions when you were practicing or performing?
Yeah. I mean, I spent like really that time in Berkeley was when I really understood like what I would need to do, and that was the time where I was like asking a question. For the rest of the time, I was like, well, fuck, I would like to go to this basketball practice, but maybe not. So it wasn't that difficult until 16, 17.
And was there a specific person that, like you mentioned already, Chick Corea, but was there maybe someone from your surroundings, your close surroundings, that also sparked the fire for this trip?
Well, I mean, you mentioned Avishai, so he was a big source of inspiration at the beginning. I actually auditioned for his student ensemble. Not many people know that, but I was like 15 at the time, and he was like leading, student ensemble in this like conservatory, and I was like, whoa, there's a guy from Chick Corea's trio, like, whoa, I want to do it. And I auditioned, and he didn't accept me, and I was like, okay, great. And then a few years later, I started playing with him. But having him in my orbit, Avishai, the trumpet player, Omar Avital was there, the amazing piano player, Omri Moore, was like a huge, huge source of inspiration at the time. And yeah, now the generation that came after us of Israeli musicians is pretty incredible. And before there were many musicians, and some of them were like really top notch, like these guys.
And I also, now I remember that I even saw you then perform with Avishai once, and I also remember that I thought, wow, it's insane how you also work as a glue, like because I seen you work as your work as a solo, being a part of the trio, and even then you were like like connecting everything, and then as a part of the Avishai, I felt that's even more, I felt you were really supporting him, and like whatever it needed to be to propel the performance to the audience and to connect everybody in the audience. So I noticed that. Do you consciously also think about it when you play, or does it just come naturally?
No, definitely. I'm really happy that you mentioned the glue aspect because it's a word I use quite often. I heard one time there's an interview with Sullivan Fortner. Do you know Sullivan?
No.
Oh wow, Sullivan Fortner, man, he's he's the dude for jazz piano.
Wow.
One if like one of them, if not the dude. Sullivan Fortner has a record out called Solo Game. It's insanity. It's so
Yeah.
good. And anyway, he played with Roy Hargrove and a bunch of like, yeah, and he, there was an interviewer, there was an interview that I saw of his, and uh, he was talking about defending the music or defending the musicians. Like, wow, this is great. So you take apart, I mean, to understand it, first of all, you have to think of music in communal terms, you know, it's like you're here basically for everybody. So it's rather than trying to shine the most you can by yourself and be that like, you know, saxophone star, piano star, or whatever. You're like, wait, how can I make other people sound better? You know, first of all, and then like a magic trick, if everybody around you sounds better, the environment that surrounds your playing is better, and then therefore you sound better. So it's like it's this amazing mirror of life where you know I think it's also that's super valid there. Just like take care of your surroundings. And yeah, and being a glue, it's like it means many things. Like what did the bass player just play? Is what inversion? What octave was it played? What is the drum playing? What is the subdivision? Ta-da-da. You know, take all this information, then digest it, and then bing, play the right chord. That oops, sorry. That that includes everybody. You know, it includes all the information that happened around you. So definitely, yeah, being a glue is something that is very important for me as a musician, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, because I suspect that. I mean, I also think about the musicianship like a partnership, just with a different name, right? It has ship in the end, right? So you're on it, right? It's this
Yeah,
awareness,
definitely.
responsibility, like it has so many meanings, right? And you create the atmosphere. Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
Exactly.
Yeah. And um can you tell me how does like a normal Shai Maestro day look like? Like what is your routine, morning, evening, through the day? Do you have something?
So, I mean, yeah, as I told you, I moved. I mean, I told you before we started the interview, but I moved here to Catalonia like 2 weeks ago. So the routine is still being formed. But ideally, if I can get up in the morning, I practice meditation. So like, if I do like half an hour meditation, get breakfast, get some emails done, da 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 da, and then sit and and play music until like for I don't know 2-3 hours. Then hopefully go and do some physical activity. Come back, did a little bit more of the music, and then some regular usual life stuff. Uh, but yeah, that'll be a good day if we can manage to wake up early and get this routine going. So I think that is something that I'm happy about. I'm like, yeah, go to sleep happy.
Yeah. And do you have also something to wind down or like an evening part of it?
I mean, yeah, hanging with my girlfriend, watching movies, whatever, and also, but like actually the meditation practice is pretty amazing. It's like it's really something that weaves everything together. Yeah, so it's something I'm very happy about.
Yeah. How do you meditate? Like what are your tools or what do you focus on? How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty wide and vast world, but I can give you like just a simple. It's like one object focus actually. So it could be like focusing on breath or open-eyed meditation where you focus on an object and basically learn to focus your attention on one thing without your mind escaping everywhere, which later on immediately translates to practicing your instrument. It's like Instead of like, oh, you start practicing, it's like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. Oh, your mind goes everywhere. You can't concentrate. And then Instagram, and then oh, this like pop up came and the notification, someone called, and like you never did anything. And it's like, oh, what's happening on YouTube? Oh, that's great. LeBron James has scored 30 points on the NBA. It's like, that kind of days where you're like, oof, it's everything escaped. And so like, yeah, meditation, single object meditation is a great tool to just like learn how to be more present, whether it's in a conversation, practice, whatever, cooking.
Yeah, yeah. I find for myself because I'm also practicing meditation. I find that for me, breath is the thing. Like whenever I try, or sometimes I open and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna open up and see what there is. But somehow the breath is the easiest because I can count it, like one in breath, two.
Yeah.
And if I get to 10, I am very happy about it, and then just also,
that I do all the time, the counting all the way to 10, back to 0.
yeah,
Again, you don't even get to 8 because you're like, well, it's somewhere else.
exactly.
You missed the count. If you're at 17 all of a sudden, you're like, oh, you just start. It's great, man. Really, really great. You do that for half an hour, your day is completely different.
Yeah, I would say. And I also started noticing that, like you said, it then connects to the practice. And sometimes then I even practice. I would choose, guitar players were full of licks and riffs and blah, blah, And then I would just, and this one I got actually from my teacher for Tala, that I would choose a lick and then count till 100. And if I lose it, I start again.
What do you mean? What do you mean? You choose a link and you count to 100?
Yeah, like I would make a lick, let's say, 251 in 251 or something, and then I would play it, and then I would count every round that I play up to.
Okay, yeah, yes.
And then if I lose the count, yeah, good luck, go again. You were and
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's cheating, but what helped me was that I imagine the number, that I imagine a number, and I don't know, then it somehow works. But if I'm just like, not imagining anything and just going, and I just lose it. But something magical also happens when I reach that 100. Like my flow with the instrument is like transcendent. Like it's really something.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy. The mind is if you just like we need patience, that's the thing that's so lost these days. Like everything is TikTok, Instagram, quick, learn something, upload it to YouTube, get the likes, get the comments, get the dopamine hit, and you're done. Which is fine. It's cool, but then the repetition and staying with the material. Speaking of like sacrifice and
Yeah,
it's like that's where you learn new skills. That's how you learn new things, and that's how you internalize, and it doesn't just become like something that's went through your brain and disappeared. But you can actually change.
Yeah, exactly. And I've read also that recently, a couple of years, you started now to write music for orchestra and scoring and film music. And tell me, how did the transition come into your life? Was it again this just flow, and it was like, oh, this is something what I want, or?
Well, my music has been like that's how like the way I started playing music was cinematic. Like so when I was 5 years old, I didn't know anything about music, and I just like sat next to the piano at my parents' house, and I was like imitating the sounds of the forest, like like just animals running and rain and thunders and all this kind of stuff, which later on turned out to be improvisation. I was like, okay, so you make things up. Great. And then with film scoring, it was just like a natural transition. Plus the knowledge of classical music, working with the music software, jazz, different genres, like that kind of stuff is really useful when you write music for cinema. And so I love the creative challenge. It's beautiful, really beautiful.
And you mentioned that as a kid, you were that the nature, you were kind of mimicking nature. Do you have maybe a story or a special story from childhood also that is connected to music, or do you remember something?
A story from the childhood that disconnected from music? Just any story?
Yeah, like this. There's something that, oh, this is an interesting one.
About nature?
Yeah, like maybe something connecting, because you mentioned that you were mimicking, trying to mimic the forest.
A story from the childhood about, wow. Um,
I hope I'm not stretching you too much. So
no. Just like trying to think how it connects to music. I mean, I don't know if from the childhood I can tell you a story from like 1 hour ago when I was hiking outside, and I stopped in the middle of the path of the run to sit and actually do some meditation work, and then like the thing was, it's called a hyper attention, I guess, exercise or something like that. When you try to listen to every little detail that is happening around you. So birds, wind, water, leaves, and like once you get into the state, it's like it's really like you feel something that's opening up, and then go back home, do it with a Shostakovich symphony, for example, or with Beyonce, whatever, like, and try to listen to every single thing that is happening. If you talk about Beyonce, listen to the sound, the snare sound, and how much reverb is there, reverb on anything, on everything, is there, what are the lyrics, the groove with bass part, this kind of stuff. So I think that's like a good lesson we can learn from from paying attention, especially in nature. It's just like also really beautiful because of the sensory experience that is not just audio.
yeah. And regarding to the writing of the music that you do, how do you tackle that process of writing? Do you, yeah, tell me, how do you do it?
You tell me. I'm trying to do this these days. Uh, it's wild, man, because it's so elusive. It's like it's really something that doesn't have a formula. It's not like, I went out for my morning run and I came back and now I will write 20 minutes of music in this 3 hour times that I have. Which I guess if you score for films and you have a deadline, you need to write 20. You just do it. But if you want to write music that has this thing that when you listen to it, you're like, yes, I found it. That is super elusive, and it's really interesting to explore that with like changing your state of being. Exploring like how can I be present today? Like where I am, am I super chaotic? Am I quiet? I don't know what, and then try to write something that goes with what you feel today. I think is a good key to find at least find interesting things. You know what I mean? If like you're in a really zombie mode that like nothing really touches you, and you try to write like super intricate harmonic blah 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 thing, probably not gonna work. So I guess writing freely is a lot about being attuned to where your spirit is at the moment.
Well, this also brings me, once we were hanging out and you mentioned this fantastic quote that I still sometimes like play back in my head, and that was "shit, thank you." Like,
Yeah.
and, can you tell us a little bit about this phrase of yours?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just like it's a, how can I say it, like a sexy slogan that I invented, but the concept is not, but I mean, it existed for the entirety of time. But yeah, just to briefly explain, shit, thank you is this shit and thank you. And that basically means transforming things that happen to you that are, that suck into productive or beneficial yeah, beneficial, to have a beneficial quality to them. And so let's say like you want to play do re mi fa sol la si do. You get the last do, and your finger press two keys at the same time. You have do and do, like C and C sharp together. The first reaction is shit, and then if you learn to say thank you, you say like, well, I just got a gift. I just got like a minor second that happened by mistake, and I could just mess around with it and move it, play it like a fourth down, fifth up, minor third down, major third up. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And then, like, what if I harmonize it? What if I add like this thing? And all of a sudden, you're in this completely different universe that happened only because you messed up, quote unquote, messed up. And so it applies to anything. Like anything could be seen as a platform for something better. I find it more difficult to apply in real life because it's more vast, and so music is like it's like a laboratory, kind of a safe zone to try it. Like, although like people talk about risks in music, and I'm like, well, yeah, but like, what's the biggest risk? That you play a shitty gig? Like, come on, it's not, it's not like it's not the end of not the end of the world. And stop thinking you are the center of the universe. It's okay. Like, that's kind of the thing. And yeah, but definitely you can turn anything into a gift. That's for sure.
Yeah. And well, do you write? When you write, do you always use the piano, or do you imagine other instruments, or how do you do it? Or you whistle, or like, what's the process?
Yeah, so it depends on the project. It depends. So when I wrote for orchestra, I started more and more understanding how goddamn geniuses were all these composers, like Beethoven, Shostakovich. Like, no logic, no Sibelius, no finale. Are you kidding me? No sequencer, no record. It's just like piano and then paper. How the hell did you do that? And so but changing times, you need to adapt different tools. Uh, so like when I write to an orchestra, I use Logic, and I just like I work with that. I'm a big believer in musical DNA, meaning that the simple piano sketch that you're writing, or piano composition, whatever, should be satisfying to listen to and complete. And then if you orchestrate it, if you add a groove, if you I don't know, like whatever additions are made later, that's great, but these are like cosmetics. So like the DNA, the most important work is the campfire guitar, song, basically, to make sure it's satisfying to listen to in the most naked, MIDI, not sexy version, and then orchestrate, and then add a flute, and then have a counterpoint, and then whatever, but it's just genius music. It's like really just makes sense. It put Beethoven's Fifth Symphony in MIDI with no velocity, no nothing. It would sound great. Obviously not as great as with an orchestra, but like it would make complete sense because everything is in place.
Yeah.
So
sometimes I imagine what was happening to the people when this fresh music at that time, like Beethoven's Fifth or something, was introduced to them. Probably they lost their shit on the gig.
Yeah,
that was the highlight, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, completely new way of looking at music. Absolutely, these guys, man, wow! Like Wayne was like that also. Wayne Shorter.
Really?
Yeah. No, he was like pen to paper. Wrote his opera. Like, amazing.
You wrote an opera?
Wayne Shorter wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I have to check that. And like, what are your favorite composers?
So many. I mean, Shostakovich, Stravinsky, Rachmaninoff, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Debussy. I love impressionistic music. What's his name? Steve Reich. Love his work. Yeah, so many.
Yeah. And like, was there a moment when you thought like the music is not the way to go, and if, how did you tackle it, or how did you get over it?
Not the way to go for me, you mean?
Yeah, like
It was. Oh, I knew I was like again like other than this time in Berkeley, I always knew I wanted to play music. And sometimes I think about issues of contributing to society, and that's like a really interesting one because there are many ways to help, and I try to do it also in ways that are not only music, but then if you have a certain thing that you're good at, whether it's being a lawyer or an athlete or a musician or whatever, and it's more than not more, but it's like it's a little less common than so I think that could be used as well. But other than that, no, man, I love music. I love being around it. I love the people that it brings to my life. The fact that we can have this interview now, talk about music is great. Like those things, those relationships that are formed because of music. It's an incredible life to live.
yeah. And do you, but does it happen, for example, that some days, I don't know, you have a deadline, or you have this gig, or does it happen sometimes that you just don't feel like internally, like there's a spark that is missing or something? And
Yeah.
how do you tackle that if that appears?
So the counterintuitive thing to do, which paradoxically turns out to work great for me, is to accept it. Is to accept that you're not inspired. Accept that you have no ideas in your mind, you have no music in you, you're empty, and that this is okay. And I think again, like remembering that music is not everything, and to try to take the volume down a little bit, at least if we can, on this crazy ego trip that a lot of us have of like, I'm a musician, I'm like my career, like it's cool. It's good that we play music, but we're just we're part of something. It's not that Coltrane was the center of the universe, or even not even Dalai Lama. I don't know. Like everybody is a part of something, and then if you understand that, it becomes a little less stressful when you're not inspired. It's like, okay, great. So it's a day like this, and I'll be inspired tomorrow. It's part of human nature, and that's it. Okay, it's not such a big drama. And then, ironically, like what happens is that you play a great gig. See what I mean?
Yeah.
But that from like say, yeah, embracing the changing nature of the souls or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something what I also now started to embrace more. Like I just trust that that, how should I say, this energy level will arise, and that I should maybe enjoy the day when I don't have so much to do, because busy days will come for sure, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, to embrace when it doesn't happen. Check this out. It's like it's not super easy to implement, even if it's like it's not to do it so that you play better. It's to embrace that you play bad sometimes, and that's a real big key to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because do you also agree that sometimes it's just the honesty that people get filled by at the gig? Like I really got several times that feeling, either watching or being like, oh my god, this is it, man. Like, huh? How do you feel? Like
About honesty in gigs,
yeah,
I think it's the most beautiful thing you can offer to an audience.
yeah.
And that is not always the most beautiful thing, but that's the beauty.
Yeah, well put. And yeah, 'cause I remember I had couple of months ago I had this gig and I changed strings on the guitar and it sounded like shit. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be a fucked up gig. I gave up. I was like, I did my job. I practiced up until this day. Somehow the sound is just not there. I come to the gig, I set up, the sound, blah 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 blah. I'm like, okay, it's gonna be average. And then it's something flipped because I lowered my standards so much. Every note was so precious that I played good. And it was like, oh my god.
But that's man. We are all in this crazy ego trip. It's crazy. Like we're so worried about career and success and what happens if you play shit. Like it's check it out, and then like when you just let go of it and enjoy it,
Yeah,
and that's it. And if you don't, that's okay too.
yeah, yeah. I
It's
even
not.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you go.
No, it's not. It's not a It's not a basketball game where you have winners. It's really different. I think. Yeah, it's on the more like spiritual way of thinking. Is like you could apply it to competitive sports as well, where you're still a human being who would just enjoy his day at work, and if you lose, you lose. But I think they're in competitive sports. These guys have like a much guys or girls have a much more like defined goal.
Yeah.
But even there, it's the same.
Yeah. Mm, on a couple of instances, I even imagine that I am someone else, like on a gig. Like I even introduced myself as someone. And it's funny what it did to my ego. Like I just didn't care what I play in the sense that I didn't care for the mistakes and it liberated me. It was crazy.
Great. So that's like an amazing mirror to now try to do the same while presenting your name. Like, no, I'm really serious, man. Like, it's it's great. So you have it in you, and then like you understand it's an ego thing. Like
Yeah.
once it's my name, it's more like it happens to me all the time. It's like as soon as it's my gig, everything is more, yeah, safe. I don't know. It's like, yeah.
And what is your pre-concert? Like what do you do before a concert?
These days I'm trying to do like a meditation sandwich, like so meaning like short one before, short one after, so that each one of them has a different meaning. The one before is to get in the right zone, like make sure I'm open and quiet, and that I don't have too much perceived, pre-perceived idea of what I want to do, but rather to go start improvising and allow things to happen. And I have songs that I've written that I can play, blah blah blah. But like the idea is to really try to empty my mind as much as I can. And the other part of the sandwich is after the concert, which is kind of to do what I just described to you, which is to go back to earth, land, uh, and put what just happened in the right perspective. So like you're on stage, there's a room full of people. I don't know, it could be 5 people, could be 2,000 people, and they're all looking at you and they're cheering for you if it was a good gig, and standing ovation and buying records and everybody shaking your hands like, it was great. And it potentially can really mess you up. It can really confuse you and make you think like you're the center of like the universe. Oh, sorry, in a certain way. You know what I mean? Like you, and then I know a lot of artists are struggling with like post tour depression, where you go back to your own regular life, and then guess what? You need to go to the supermarket, you need to take the trash can, nobody is applauding you, and then you get all fucked up, and so I think the second meditation is to really kind of like put everything in perspective, understand that it just happened. It was like a communal experience of whatever exchange happened on stage, and then that's it. You go back to the hotel, and you don't give in to your the imagined personality like this Shai Maestro thing, or Herbie Hancock, or Rafael Nadal. I don't know, like, or you just do what you do, you know. And so that makes touring way easier. Like, it makes being on stage way easier, and then the transition is way easier. Going back to the hotel way easier, and just like find this flow, because you go travel the world, play music, come back to the hotel, go. That's it. You know, it's like not too crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you put it well just with this. When you try to describe it, you did this sigh. You know, I think that's exactly the state that you can be put in, right? Like it's just bit manic.
Fake. It's fake. It's all fake. It's like it's not. It's okay. You know, it happened, and it's real what happened. But that's it. There's like this whole other thing of, you know, we built shrines, like Instagram shrines, and the amount of followers that we have, and da 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 da. And it's like, it's really, you can lose your mind, because then anxiety, because then you need to maintain it. Like, you know, you have 2 million followers on Instagram. Shit, I like how can you know what I mean? It's like, it's great, and if you can have 2 million followers on Instagram and still be cool, and not don't let it consume you and feel like you need to feed this monster all the time, but like just see it from a point of view, like, well, you know, have an opportunity to talk to a very, very large amount of people. Let me try to do the best I can with it and go back to my life. That's it.
Yeah, beautiful. And you mentioned earlier that you also do some physical activity. Is there something that you are focused on? Is there something that you're the most busy with physically?
No, just cardio, trying to maintain a healthy routine and to feel a little bit like less like a piano worm, you know, and you just like sitting, crouching, and above hovering above the keys all day, you become a little bit like slouched
Yeah.
and heavy. So like, this physical activity, not anything too fancy.
Yeah, yeah. So like running or
Yeah, running, swimming,
swimming.
the yeah, the usual stuff.
That's perfect for posture, like swimming. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
say it's fantastic. And did you, in a recent year or a recent period, uh, faced a struggle, and would you be willing to share how did you tackle that, or how are you managing it? That would be very precious.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So, writer's block was a big one. I mean, there was like COVID, like a lot of things but had a writer's block that I had to deal with, and actually, like an interview that I heard, my Brad Meldau really helped me. There's this a podcast called something about Bach. What WTF Bach, something like that. What the fuck Bach? I think it's the guy that talks about Bach's music. And then he interviewed Brad. And then Brad spoke about writer's block, and he spoke about, check it out, it's pretty incredible, about creative pregnancy. I was like, what? It's like, yeah, there's a time where you need to be pregnant. You need to raise something. You need to make something grow, and you don't have an output. It's cooking. It's being made, and that really helped me. So, like, kind of at times where I'm completely uninspired, I just change the output need to input. Oh, sorry, my phone. Okay. So try to change the output to input, and I spoke to Tigran one time, and I asked him how does he stay inspired. But I think he lived in Armenia or something, like also like isolated kind of life, far away from a musical scene. And he was like, "Yeah, I just listen to a lot of classical music." I was like, "Wow, great!" So change the output to input. Read books, Try to do try to filter what you intake and make sure it's really quality stuff. Unless you want to binge watch some shitty Netflix show and then you do it consciously, it's okay. But but otherwise, man, yeah, just put a Shostakovich symphony, just like like that's really really helpful for sure.
Mm. And in a similar attitude, in a similar question, is there a lesson or a quote or a line that you go to when things are a little bit weird, or is there something that keeps on coming back, something what you've learned?
Yeah, um, it comes a little bit from the Buddhist world, where they talk a lot about perception, and that everything is your perception. Like you can change your how you see everything. What's his name? Roberto Benigni did "Life Is Beautiful" about living in the Holocaust and changing the way you saw things. Did you see that? Did you watch this movie?
No.
He's there with this amazing film. Life Is Beautiful, and he's there with his son in the Holocaust, and then he's basically trying to present a beautiful reality to his son in the Holocaust, and everything is like something happens, and it transforms it into I don't know, like I need to watch it again to remember it. But so that shows you that even in the hardest circumstances, what nobody can take away from you is your choice to how you see things.
Mm.
And so when you struggle with writer's block, depression, or music related issues, it's really helpful for me to remember that there is a way for me to change my mind about it and to change how I see it. So it's not like reality is fucked and I'm fucked and that's it, which is very true as well. Like especially in circumstances that are physically horrible. Talking about these days now, it's like, but yeah, we will always have a freedom to choose how we see things. So in circumstances that are way easier and lighter, talking about music, for sure, just change your perspective. Use whatever tools you have, whether it's like master's wisdom, or your own wisdom. Practice, meditation is great for that as well.
Thanks. And since we're getting to the end, what or where is the best that people get to know you better? Where are you most active to find more about you?
Well, you mean like in concerts?
Yeah, either concerts or in sense of now everything is online. So what is the most which channel do you use the most to be connected with the audience?
Oh, it'll be Instagram. It's been quiet since the whole thing in Israel Palestine started, but usually that's where I upload all my stuff, and then that I put like some website quotes and links and like the concert links and whatever. But yeah, that's my main go-to.
Yeah. So I will also put all the links and whatnots in the description of the podcast, so that people can get to know you better and find out more about Shai Maestro. On this note, I want to thank you from the depths of my heart for this wonderful conversation, for sharing your insights on music, your wisdom, your learning experience, history. And yeah, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. I had a great time. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you in real life whenever that happens.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, feel free to share your thoughts and ideas on the topics we've discussed today in the comments, as well as any burning questions you might have for my future guests. I'm your host, Michael Hrustil, and until next time, I wish you a sound mind.